Hey everyone, and welcome back to a new video. It's been far too long since I last uploaded to this channel, and to be absolutely honest, it's because there's been so much going on for me over the last 6 months, but I'm in a better place now thankfully, not least because Age of Sigmar 3rd edition is now out, which is a really odd thing to say because I've actually yet to play any 9th edition 40k, and I'm kind of getting to grips with 2 new versions at the same time, but that's besides the point, because with a new version comes plenty of great things to celebrate: new model ranges, an opportunity to explore the game fresh with your friends and local gamers, and much more. And that's actually what I want to focus on in this new video. Why, if you don't already play Age of Sigmar, you might just want to give it a go this time, and what is the best way to dive in. Naturally, if you're already an avid fan of Age of Sigmar like me, then you might not get too much from this video yourself, but do consider sharing it with a friend you've not seen in a while, and let's be honest, we've all got those right now, and maybe gain a new hobby partner in the process. It's a win-win for everyone really. So with all that said, here's a few reasons why it's currently the perfect time to get into Age of Sigmar. Reason 1, brand new model ranges. With every edition of Warhammer, there's a ton of new models that come with it, and it's fair to say that the ranges we've seen over the last few months have really shown why Games Workshop are one of the leaders in tabletop wargaming. The models are simply superb to look at. I'd perhaps even go as far to say that Age of Sigmar has really come into its own recently when it comes to the creativity and high fantasy tone of its models. You only have to look at the recent Lumineth Realm Lords releases, Kragnos, and some of the recent Slaanesh range to see that Age of Sigmar is confidently casting off the remnants of its Warhammer fantasy lineage and embracing all the opportunity and creative potential of its new setting. But even more than that, Games Workshop is really finessing its craft when it comes to casting its models, and is giving us some of the most detailed and visually distinct models that we've ever seen in the hobby. Looking at the new Dominion set, which offers a platform for new players to get into Age of Sigmar, we're getting 2 new armies that have really got all hobbyists excited. In particular, I've seen plenty of comments about the new Stormcast Eternals looking much more realistic than those that launched with Age of Sigmar's 1st edition in 2015, and that's not surprising. Games Workshop has had 6 years to continue improving their processes, and it shows. With the improved manufacturing comes greater detail and more realistic postures and scaling for each new range of models. But even more than that, the new Crawl Boys army that we're seeing in the Dominion set shows how visually distinct these new ranges are becoming. Up until now, Orc armies have all tended to stick near to the style that has run through most Warhammer franchises since their early days. However, we're now seeing these ranges branch off into their own subgenres, giving collectors much more to pick from when it comes to the look and feel of the army they want to collect, or to borrow from to create their own kit bash styles. That's all partly because of the improved manufacturing, but also because the design team are being let loose to explore and open up all of the exciting corners of the Age of Sigmar universe and try some really cool and interesting ideas to bring that setting to life, which we'll no doubt see in future releases over the course of 3rd edition. In short, what all of this means is that new players are coming into Age of Sigmar at a time when the models have never looked or felt better, and given that's half the hobby, that's a pretty good reason to be excited. Reason 2, starting a new army has never been easier. I think it's fair to say that while painting is such a great part of this hobby, it can feel more like a chore for many gamers, and that's completely fine. Personally, I've always struggled to find the time to paint my minis simply because, unlike playing the game, painting is a bit of an open-ended process, and it can feel difficult to carve out the time for something that could take hours and hours when there's so much going on in our lives. That's where contrast paints have really come into their own. They make painting much easier for those of us who want to break the process down into simpler, defined chunks, and to thereby manage our time a little easier. Now, like a few others, I was a bit cynical of contrast paints when they first came out, and I felt they might be seen as the inferior cousins to the existing paint range. However, that's far from true, and the results that many hobbyists have achieved with them have really shown that it's technique, not time, that defines how good your army can look, and contrast paints help on both fronts. So with that in mind, I just wanted to stress that whether you're an existing Warhammer fan or entirely new to the hobby, painting your Age of Sigmar models has never been more streamlined, meaning you can focus on the parts of the hobby you enjoy most, whether it's the lore, playing, painting, or all 3, while also allowing time for all the other things that life throws at us. Reason 3, a new world awaits. A new edition of any Warhammer franchise not only offers an opportunity to reconfigure the rules of the game, but also to consolidate a lot of the lore that's developed over the prior edition. For example, we've just had the Broken Realms campaign, which has massively changed the story for characters like Morathi and Be'lakor, and thrown many of the realms and alliances into chaos as the balance of power has shifted back and forth between them. And of course there are a few other characters that have appeared in some of the fictional stories that have accompanied the main books, who I'm keeping a very close eye on as we head through the next few months. But for new players, what this means is that the story, mythos and setting for Age of Sigmar, while never being so well fleshed out and detailed, has also never been so well packaged. The core book really does offer a great foundation for players to learn about the setting for the game as it's intended to. But even more than that, the new core book really fleshes out the setting and realms of Age of Sigmar better than I've ever seen. For example, in Soul Wars, Hysh only got 2 pages to explain its background, but after all it was only really developed with the launch of the Lumineth Realm Lords. But now we have a beautiful section on the realm and the free cities within it, notably Settler's Game, which outlines the history of the city and the lives and culture of the people within it. To many, this offers a nice bit of context for the realm, but to others, it could be the start of a whole new way of looking at and building an army, and that's where you can see the strength of the hobby right now. There's never been so much fuel for the imagination. But naturally this lore, which is so well presented and illustrated in the new core book, will also continue to develop as new campaigns are launched. Much like Warhammer 40k, I think we'll see new supplements in the coming months, but far from being perhaps a cheeky way of selling books, it's a sign that new content is always on the horizon. More so, we're seeing Age of Sigmar's ever-growing universe taking to our PCs and televisions through some really exciting projects, which not only opens up new routes to the hobby, but also offers a great reason to delve into the lore and understand the background behind them. Reason 4. Embracing a new community. One of the main reasons I got into Age of Sigmar 3 years ago was the simple fact that hanging around my local games workshop, I was often drawn into the conversations and games taking place in the store. I'd been a big fan of Warhammer Fantasy back in the day, and like so many others, I'm still somewhat missing that alternative format quite a lot. However, those conversations and games in my local store gave me that sense of community that I'd been missing for quite a while, and a chance to talk about the fun stuff of Warhammer Fantasy while leaning into its new setting and learning about how my favourite heroes had evolved over time. From there, I was hooked. Today, I think that sense of community is more important than ever, and if I can only leave you with one message in this video, it's that embracing a new community within the Warhammer hobby is never a bad thing. That's because these communities never exist in isolation, but blend into one another. For example, I've seen some really great paint schemes for Space Marines and other armies based off of Age of Sigmar factions, and vice versa. Similarly, there's so much scope for kit bashing once you've built up a few models from 40k and Age of Sigmar, again pointing to that fuel for imagination that both settings offer one another. But at a core level, I think just being able to access those communities is worth it in and of themselves. There are plenty of lore articles and communities floating on the internet which may just give you an opportunity to escape to another universe, all without any money leaving your wallet. Then if you ever feel like diving in a little further, you know where to go. Ultimately, I think that's really where the phrase Warhammer is for everyone resonates the most. There's always something we can get out of the hobby, whatever our level of interest. So what's the best way to get into Age of Sigmar if you are interested? Well, at the moment we have the Dominion box set, which is certainly a great set in terms of the wealth of models you get and the price you get them for, and we have just seen the latest tiered sets which break down that Dominion box into much more bite-sized chunks, offering ways into the hobby at some pretty broad price levels. And you don't even need to pay anything to give the game a go. Local Warhammer stores are always keen to introduce players to the game with in-person sessions, meaning you can give these sets a go and learn about the game from the people who know best. But all of that said, I personally understand that these sets, while being superb as introductions, can feel a bit restrictive. If you're not into at least one of the factions in the box, or more than likely find yourself drawn more to a different faction altogether, something like the tiered sets can feel a bit restrictive and kind of a necessary obstacle to getting into the hobby on your terms. So if you do find yourself in that position, what's the best approach? Well, the range of start collecting sets that Games Workshop offers are a great way to get into the hobby when you've got a particular faction in mind, and I feel they often get overlooked when we get brand new edition box sets that Games Workshop really want to sell, particularly so given that you're also saving a hefty chunk of money with the start collecting sets too. But what I generally suggest is to spend some time in your local store, browsing the Games Workshop website, or visiting online forums to learn about some of the factions in Age of Sigmar, and pick one that really draws you in based on how they look, their background, or how they seem to play on the tabletop. Then pick yourself up a copy of that faction start collecting set, or a hero, a battle line unit, and maybe another fun looking unit if they don't have a start collecting set for some reason, and then be sure to pick up the battle tome for that faction. This will give you everything you need to play for about the same cost as the Extremist starter set or less, but with the added bonus that you'll have the army you want and plenty of extra lore material and unit profiles to dive into later on. Now, while the Dominion set and new tier sets offer 2 armies for you to use, which can be useful if you and a friend are jumping in together, in truth, you're never really in short supply of people who are happy to run a few introductory games with you, so let the community take some of the burden off your wallet in that regard, and be sure to get the army you want to play with week after week. Once you've had a few games, you might decide it's not for you, in which case you've still got some models that you really like and can either finish the collection or sell them on. However, I think, like me a few years ago, you'll find yourself drawn more and more into Age of Sigmar's exciting universe and all of the lore, cool looking models and friends that come along with it. But I think I'll leave things there. Thank you as always for joining me for this video, and hopefully I've been able to entice you into giving Age of Sigmar a go and seeing where that journey takes you. Again, it's certainly a great time to get started, and we have a wealth of cool stuff waiting for us in this edition. If you have any suggestions yourself on why people should check out Age of Sigmar, or want to share your own story about how you got into the game, please do post a comment below. I'm sure potential players will be reading them, so let's give them plenty to work with as they consider it. And now I'm back into making these videos, I'll be gearing up to share more 40k and Age of Sigmar content, which I hope you'll join me for as we head through the rest of the year. Until that next video though, do take care.